Hello everybody, and welcome back to Chapter 2, and we're going to look at the market-based system, which is the economic system our country operates under, and what is known as the circular flow model. So we're going to start off by looking at different economic systems, the characteristics of the market-based system, or the system that we utilize in the United States, and Western countries utilize as well. We're going to look at the 5 fundamental economic questions that any economic system must answer. We're going to look at the notion of what is the invisible hand. This is a term coined by an economist from the late 1700s named Adam Smith, and what we mean by this. We're going to look at the circular flow model, and the circular flow model is how goods and services and money flow throughout an economy. And finally, we're going to look at how does our market-based system deal with risk. So any kind of an economic system is a set of, generally a government, but it's a set of institutionalized arrangements which an economy operates under. And there's some form of coordinating mechanism, which is usually some form of a central government. Differences in systems exist by the degree of decentralized use of markets and prices in decision making and the degree of centralized government control. So in the real world, every economic system is some mix of the free market and government control. What we say free market systems, like the system we live under or many other westernized countries, do still have a good amount of government influence and intervention in various sectors. But we can contrast that with something like a command-style economy, like North Korea, where the government basically controls everything. And we're going to look at the 2 different systems in a moment. So laissez-faire capitalism is the idea that the government has no interference in the economic system. And it was envisioned by Adam Smith. Adam Smith is considered the father of modern economics, and he lived in the end of the 1700s and wrote a famous book called The Wealth of Nations. He claimed there's no need for governments to interfere in markets because markets are self-correcting. And the only real role of the government is to protect private property from theft, so provide some form of a policing system and have a court system so contracts can be protected and enforced as well. And people interact in markets to buy and sell their goods and services, and the markets are self-correcting, meaning the products being made are going to be ones that are desired by people, and people will set the price with how much they demand products. So that's what we mean by markets are self-correcting. In a command economy or a command-based system, this is any form of a socialistic or communistic state, and you have government ownership of resources. And command economies, things like the former Soviet Union, China prior to their economic liberalization in the 1970s and 80s, these are examples of command systems. You have a central planning board which controls the economy, and what is made, how much of it is made, where it's sold, that's all controlled by the government. And generally, the only countries that really have these anymore are ones that are extremely restrictive, things like North Korea, Cuba, Burma, or Myanmar, and that's what we mean by a command-based system. Command-based systems generally do not work, and we'll go into why that is the case shortly. A market system, or what we're used to in the United States and most Western countries have similar, is a mix of decentralized decision-making with some government control. There's no true laissez-faire economy anywhere in the world. Most real-world economies are market-based systems. And these are found in much of the world, Western Europe, the United States, North America in general, most of Asia. These are all market-based systems. And what happens in a market-based system are your resources are owned by private individuals and companies, markets and prices coordinate, and you have direct economic activity. So you can choose to go into business, you can make whatever product you deem people want, and that's a market-based system. You can make money, but there's also a degree of risk. You can go out of business, you can build product that no one might want. So you certainly can fail as well. The government, however, does play a role in the U.S. version of capitalism. The government plays a substantial one. The government certainly does get involved in market-based systems. However, they are not directing businesses to what they should make or owning the means of production or anything like that. So in any type of a market system, you have private property, meaning you can buy your own property, land, resources, capital goods. You can own your own factory. You have both freedom of enterprise and freedom of choice. Freedom of enterprise means you can go into the business of your choosing, and that you have the freedom to obtain and use resources, produce products you want to produce in a field you want to go into, and sell these products wherever you choose to, in markets of your preference. So you can sell online, or you can sell in a physical store, or you can sell both. You can sell to the public, you can sell to other businesses. These are all examples of freedom of enterprise. The government isn't telling you what to make or where to sell it. You have freedom of choice, so you can choose where you want to work or what you want to produce. No one's forcing you to take a specific job or work in a specific field. You have mobility. You can choose what do you want to study, do, work in, or anything like that. And you also have freedom to spend whatever money you make, however you choose to want to spend it. So money you make from economic activity, you have the ability to decide what you want to do with it. Self-interest is one of the biggest drivers of a market system, and that's not a bad thing. Both consumers and businesses operate under the notion of what is known as rational self-interest, meaning they will make the goods and services that they want to make, that they think will sell well, and customers can buy the goods and services that they want. If everybody operates in their rational self-interest, you should have efficient markets where the goods and services being made are what are demanded. Market-based systems have competition. If you want to go into business and you see someone doing something and you think you can do better, you're welcome to do that. And you might actually not only do better, you might replace them as the dominant force in the market. So you have the notion of competition as well. And finally, markets set the prices. The more something's demanded will make something generally more valuable, and the reverse is true as well. So entrepreneurs generally try to maximize their profits or minimize their losses, and the markets set the prices of goods and services. And this is just some economic freedom of various countries in 2019. And at the very, very bottom are your countries which are your command-based systems. Cuba, Venezuela, and North Korea are the three lowest that were studied. United States, number 12. Hong Kong, Singapore, and New Zealand were the top three as of 2019. So in market-based systems, advanced technology and capital goods are encouraged. Remember, capital goods, which we learned in the previous chapter, drive economic growth. The more capital goods and technology you have in an economy, the more that economy is going to grow. That is a very good thing. Capital goods are what drive growth, and technology makes you or I or whomever is operating a business or some form of industry, you can produce cheaper, more effectively, and more efficiently. Market-based systems also specialize. So labor will self-assign into fields that they are best suited to work in. Certain regions will make certain products because they may have the resources to make those products or the expertise to make them, and this can be on an international level as well. We're going to touch greatly upon trade later on in this class, and that's another example of geographic specialization. Countries, states, regions will make the goods and services they're best suited to make, and then exchange with other regions or other countries or all of the above to guarantee the best mix of goods and services in the overall economy. So that's what we mean by division of labor and specialization. In a market-based system, there is a form of money, and money makes trade easier. We're going to go into money in several chapters in this class, but when we talk about money in economics, we're talking about money in an economic sense. It doesn't have to be the dollars in your pocket, although in the United States it is, But economically, the definition of money is anything that is a medium of exchange which is accepted throughout the economy. For something to be money, we have to have it be accepted throughout the entire economy. The dollar is the money of our country because you can use dollars anywhere in our country to buy goods and services. And money in economics is not inherently useful. It becomes useful when you use it to purchase something, and that's what we mean by it's a medium of exchange. We can exchange money for the goods and services which we want and not have to barter. Barter is the same thing as trade, and barter is very economically inefficient. Let's say you wanted to buy a new pair of AirPods. In a barter-based system, you would have to find someone selling a pair of AirPods that wants an item you have to do a trade. Oftentimes this doesn't work, so you may have to trade with many people until you arrive at some sort of product that the person selling the AirPods would want. By using money, you could simply walk up to the seller of the AirPods and hand him or her some money and buy the AirPods. So money is useful because you can exchange it for any good and service you want, instead of having to barter and find something that a person requires or will take in exchange. So money also facilitates trade when wants don't coincide. So if we look at this slide here, Florida has oranges but wants wheat. Nebraska has wheat but they don't want oranges, they want potatoes. So Florida has to trade with Idaho, who wants oranges and has potatoes, and then give those potatoes to Nebraska for the wheat. That would be extremely inefficient. So now Florida simply can just give Nebraska some money and get the wheat, and Nebraska can give that money to Idaho and get the potatoes, and Florida can give oranges to Idaho and get money in return as well. So in this case, money allows much more direct deals, and you don't have to trade with one or more partners to then barter with someone who has the good or service that you want. In a market-based system, we say that government is both active and limited, so we may need the government to alleviate market failures. And by market failures, we don't mean something like a stock market collapsing. We mean the breakdown of a smoothly operating market. So a monopoly springing up, for example, would be a market failure. A monopoly is the opposite of competition. You have one person making all of the goods and services in a particular field, and therefore that is the opposite of competition, and usually consumers suffer as a consequence. So in this case, the government may need to step in to help alleviate that. Governments can also increase the effectiveness of a market-based system by encouraging production of goods that have a benefit to society, but there may not be enough of. And we'll touch on this more in later chapters. So something like Texas giving out money to Tesla to build electric cars there. That's an example. They can also regulate goods that are harmful. So things that might pollute, or cigarettes they put taxes on. Those are examples of government intervening to remove goods that are harmful or add goods that are beneficial. But governments can fail as well. Governments are not perfect. They're run by people. They're subject to things like corruption and inefficiency, and the government cannot always alleviate economic issues either. So regardless of what economic system we have to answer 5 fundamental economic questions. What goods and services will be produced? How will they be produced? Who is going to get them? How will the system accommodate change? And how will the system promote progress via things like technology and capital goods? So if we look at our 5 questions, in a market-based system, this is what happens. What will be produced is decided by what is popular and what is demanded. We have a notion of what is called consumer sovereignty, meaning the customers or the consumers choose the products and services that they are going to see on the market. If you make a product that no one wants, your company is probably going to go out of business. And as a consequence, that's what we mean by dollar votes. Consumers vote with their money to buy the goods and services that they demand, and therefore companies would be stupid if they didn't make the goods and services demanded by their customers. Now, this is not always perfect. Once again, economics works great in theory, but not always in practice. You're not always going to know exactly what your customers want. And something that if you ever take a management class, will cover is more of this as well. but deciding what is doing well and what is demanded, engaging what consumer demand is a very important part of running a business. And once again, in a market-based system, consumers indicate which goods and services should be produced, and they will determine what products and industries survive or fail through their purchases. If a product is no longer demanded, that product or that whole industry may go the way of the dodo. Think of VCRs or cassette tapes or anything like that. They were replaced by better technologies and were therefore no longer demanded by consumers. How will the goods be produced? In a market-based system, they're going to be produced meeting two criteria. Number one, we need to minimize the cost per unit by using the most efficient techniques, and we're going to cover this more in a few chapters. But generally, what happens is we use the best technology and we buy the cheapest necessary resources. So think of a business shopping its inputs. They're going to buy from suppliers that they get the best deal from. They're going to use technology that allows them to operate efficiently and effectively. This is all required when you are going to be producing goods and services. How to produce here, if we look, here are various production techniques, and technique number 2 would be the one you would choose. All three of them are going to yield $15 worth of bar soap, if we look right here. However, this one costs $15, as does this one. The one in the middle costs $13. So you're going to pursue the one that is the lowest possible cost, because by using technique number 2, you would make a profit. So by using technique number 2, you would make a profit. Who will get the output? Well, in a market-based system, you pay with money for goods and services. So to be considered part of the market for a product, you have to have both the ability, meaning sufficient money, and the willingness, meaning you actually want to buy the good or service, to count towards the market for a product. An ability to pay depends on income. The more money you have, the more ability to pay you have for goods and services. Now, in a market-based system, how do we change? Because nothing is static. Consumer tastes change, technology changes, and resource prices change as well. So markets are dynamic and can quickly adapt to changes in tastes and preferences. Bell-bottom jeans and 1970s polyester suits in the 70s were very popular. Obviously, you don't see many of them on shelves anymore because they fell out of fashion and clothing producers changed what they were making for the public as a consequence. Businesses find it in their best interest to make these changes because otherwise, if you're making products that no one wants anymore, you're going to go out of business. And market systems act like a giant communication system. Consumers communicate their preferences through their dollars. Business responds by either producing more if there's high demand or less if there's no or low demand, and even none of the product if demand completely goes away, like something like a VCR. And that is going to determine how much is going to be produced. When technology and resource prices, so resources are what you need to make the product or create the service, this is going to affect costs as well, and that'll change the amount of the good that'll be produced and the price as a consequence. And this is something we're going to greatly touch upon in the next few chapters. So that's that notion of that invisible hand that Adam Smith came up with, that markets will guide their way along and be efficient and produce the goods and services that are demanded by individuals. Technological advance leads to what's known as creative destruction. This is something that shows up often in management classes as well. And this is the hypothesis that the creation of new products and production methods destroys the market power of existing monopolies. What's a good example of this? About 15, 20 years ago, probably about 20 years ago, Nokia was the largest phone manufacturer in the world. But then what happened? Modern smartphones came out. iPhone came out. Google Android phones came out. And Nokia went the way of the dodo real fast. That's an example of creative destruction. They went from being the largest phone producer in the world to a footnote because of new technology, new products, new production methods, all of the above. And the market system promotes capital accumulation. Remember, capital goods drive growth. To be successful in a market-based system, you need to keep investing in new technologies and capital goods to invent new products and services, and to be able to produce more efficiently and effectively than your consumers. And the more capital goods you have, the more growth you will have in the future. And back to Adam Smith, he came up with that notion of the invisible hand, and this is the tendency of competition in a market-based system to cause individuals and firms to promote the best interest of society, even when they're only operating in their own self-interest. Businesses operate with one thing in mind: to be profitable and successful. Consumers operate by wanting to buy the goods and services that they have a use for, or want, or need, or desire, and those will line up and advance the goals of society. By businesses making what is demanded of consumers, and consumers buying the goods and services they want, it'll allow the mix of goods and services that exist in society to be the correct one. And that's that notion of the invisible hand. The markets will guide along the process and will have the right mix of goods and services. Why are market systems good? Well, market systems are good because they're efficient. They quickly adjust to changes. They have incentives in the form of money. Why do you go to work? Why do you decide to open a business? Why do you invent new products? You don't invent new products for no reason. You invent a new product because you think you're going to make money. And finally, you have freedom. You have freedom of enterprise. You have freedom of choice. You can do what you wish with your money. You can work where you wish. You can make the products and services you wish. And as a consequence, the market system is the best system we've found to this point due to these reasons. Now, why didn't command systems do so well? Things like North Korea or Cuba or those countries we looked at the very beginning of the chapter. Well, command systems fail to produce adequate amounts of goods and services. This is a fundamental problem. The former Soviet Union was one of your best examples. Pre-reform China in the 1960s, North Korea today. They have two big problems. A command system still needs to meet those 5 fundamental questions, but they don't do very well because everything is pre-planned. In a command-based system like North Korea, everything is planned by the government. The government instructs the factories and producers exactly who is going to make what, how much is going to be made in one place and another, and everybody has strict production targets that they must meet. They can't go over them or anything like that. It doesn't really encourage creation of new ideas or goods and services because everything is pre-planned by the government. So command systems run into 2 problems. Up first is the coordination problem. To successfully run a command system, you're going to have to correctly set correct production numbers for all goods and services in an economy. And this isn't possible. So as a consequence, command systems always struggle with shortages of goods and services, or the wrong mix of products, or all of the above. And finally, there's an incentive problem. There's no adjustments for surpluses or shortages. If you run a factory in a command system and you're told exactly how much to make, if there's a deep shortage of a product, you're not going to be allowed to make more. And even if you could, there's no reason you should. There's no incentive. It's not like you can make money or raise your prices, which is the incentive in our system if there's a shortage of a product. So because of that, there's really no incentives to do anything. If you have a big surplus of a product, you can't cut your production because the government's telling you once again exactly what to make. And since you're not making or really losing your own money, there's no real incentive to operate efficiently there either. So command-based systems face both of those problems. And this is going to take us to the last topic of this chapter, which is what is known as the circular flow model. We're going to look at more complex versions of this as we go throughout the class, but we're going to start first with what is known as a private and closed economy. And a private closed economy means no government, just private businesses, and closed means no trade. So all we're going to look at to start is both households and businesses. Households in economics are like me or you. Those are consumers, and businesses are the businesses which make and sell goods and services. Businesses can take many forms. A sole proprietorship is a simple business with one operator. A partnership is 2 or more people. And finally, a corporation is a business where you can have many owners in the form of stockholders. Most businesses that we know of are corporations, and if you own stock, you're part of the ownership of the business, and it's run by a board of directors. We'll touch more upon this later on as well. And in the circular flow, we have both product and resource markets. Product markets are where businesses sell goods and services, and resource markets are where businesses purchase the inputs they need to make their goods and services. And then we have a real flow, or flow of physical things like goods and services, and a money flow, or flow of money. So in a circular flow model, this is what we're looking at. So in a resource market, households sell and businesses buy. And resources are things like your land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability. These are what are provided by households or individuals, and businesses purchase them. If you get a job with a business, you're selling your labor to that business. You might sell land resources to a business, or capital goods, or provide money to a business. These are all examples of households selling to businesses. Businesses buy these resources and then sell products. Now those products get bought by the household. So the income you make from working for businesses, you then use that money to buy products from other businesses. And the goods and services flow in a big circle throughout the economy back and forth. Money flows from businesses to households via their paychecks and income, and then flows back to businesses through their purchases, the goods and services they buy. And think of it as a big circle that goes through the economy back and forth. Now, when we get to later chapters, we'll look at what can remove money from this, such as taxes and the government and things like that. But right now, we're just simply looking at businesses and households. Goods and services circularly loop throughout the economy. Now, how do market-based systems deal with risk? Well, anytime you go into business in a market-based system, you face a lot of risk. An overwhelming amount of new businesses fail. So there's always risk. You can have losses due to input shortages. We've just recently gone through all sorts of supply chain problems. That's a pertinent example right there. If you can't get the inputs you need to make your goods and services, you're going to lose money as a consequence. Changes in consumer tastes. You could have been the best VCR maker ever, but if you never went into anything else and VCRs went the way of the dodo, well, then you are going to fail. And natural disasters that affect the supply chain. This sounds familiar. We just went through one in the form of COVID, but natural disasters can take many forms. And employees and suppliers generally have security, at least for a while. If you work for a company, you have a contract, or you are anything like that, you have to get paid. You can't not pay your employees. So we would say they have security, but they can lose their job if a business starts doing very poorly. But at least for a while, they do indeed have security, whereas the business, if you own a business and it's not making money, well, then you're not making money right off the bat. You still have to pay your employees. Same thing with your suppliers. If you have contracts to buy supplies that you use to run your business, you have to pay for those supplies at least for a while as a consequence. So generally, business risks are only restricted to owners. If you work for a corporation, you don't assume the risk of that corporation. If it goes out of business or does something illegal or something like that, you're not going to be personally liable. So business risks are restricted to owners. So that's why we say entrepreneurship is a separate thing from labor. Because you need a special breed of person to be an entrepreneur. Inputs are easier to obtain, such as workers, because many dislike risk. For all of the people like the Elons and the Bezoses of the world, all the ones we hear about, most people don't want to assume that kind of risk. Because for everybody who became an Elon Musk and achieved that kind of success, there are hundreds of people who have failed. So being an entrepreneur is incredibly risky. You have to put up your own money and investors' money, and you can be on the hook for all sorts of things like that. So we consider entrepreneurship a special talent. But in a market-based system, there's a positive to this. And the positive is it focuses attention. Owners are personally responsible for their outcome of the business. If you are a poor business owner and you run your company into the ground, you're going to lose money. You might go broke. You might go bankrupt. Your business might fail. So it gives you an incentive to manage your business correctly, because if you don't, you're going to be on the hook for a lot of risk. And in theory, once again, this should encourage prudent business decisions. Now, economics works great in theory. Obviously, not every business is well run. There are plenty of poorly run businesses that fail, but this is one benefit of the market system. By making business owners have that risk, it allows them or forces them to make prudent decisions, or they will fail. And manage risk well, and owners will prosper, and if they don't manage risk well, they're going to face financial consequences, their business may fail, or all of the above. And as for command system, Venezuela went from being one of the largest, most powerful economies in South America to one of the poorest countries in the world. Their poverty rate is exceeding 90%. They've lost a huge amount of their population. Millions of people have emigrated to other nations. And this was a consequence of a command-style economy that was put into place in the 1990s, known as Bolivarian socialism. Venezuela also has faced things like hyperinflation, where their money is becoming more and more and more worthless over time, and we'll touch upon how this can happen later on in the course. And there's been a huge population exodus. So command economies face the problem of, generally, they have much lower standards of living than market-based economies, and people will generally try to flee in the form of immigration to more market-based economies and make a better life for themselves. So with that, that's going to take us to the end of Chapter 2.